everyone, and welcome back to the BasedDigimon channel. Wait, what? Greetings everyone, and welcome to my little garden. In today's video, we will be looking at a very special Digimon TCG deck profile, inspired by one of my favorite Digitubers, BasedDigimon. Just a disclaimer, this deck profile is constructed purely out of the aesthetics of BasedDigimon's channel, and BasedDigimon himself, and is definitely not meant to be competitive. That being said, this deck is a lot of fun to play with, and it feels great to score a win with it. Let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy. So we're gonna start off with...
We're gonna be talking about the pig! We'll be talking about the pig! We'll be talking about the pig!
The Digi eggs. We will be using a total of 5 eggs, 2 copies of Bukamon, and 3 copies of Upamon. Okay, so as you can tell, we will be utilizing a blue-colored deck. Upamon is still one of the best Digi eggs to use for blue. The effect is that when attacking once per turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, you may trigger draw 1. And this exact scenario is not exactly hard to accomplish at all in a typical match, so you will be using this card as a draw engine for your hand. Now, Bukamon, on the other hand, allows you to trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. This just gives us a few more opportunities to weaken our opponent's board by robbing them of Digivolution sources that could be important for their game plan. But also, you can have an extra copy of Upamon and use 4 copies of Upamon and just 1 copy of Bukamon. So that's it for the eggs. Next, we're going to be looking at the level 6 Digimon of this deck. So,
yeah!
I always want to start out with the level 6s because these are the winning conditions of your deck. So we are going to be utilizing 4 copies of Mirage Galgamon and 3 copies of Metal Garurumon. Okay, so Mirage Galgamon here is kind of the bigger guy between the two. He is going to be the main star of this deck. His Digivolution is not as expensive as you might think. It's normally 4 cost to Digivolve, but you can gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand when you Digivolve. So you can actually cheapen the cost of his Digivolution as long as your opponent has at the very least 4 cards in their hand. And it's also unblockable during your turn, so your opponent has no way of defending against it. Now, with Metal Garurumon, we're going to be utilizing 3 copies of this because we are actually going to be splitting this deck into 2 styles. One that caters to Metal Garurumon's playstyle, and the other just to help kind of bolster the effects of Mirage Galgamon. Now, for the most part, we are going to try and utilize Metal Garurumon's ability to play a level 4 or lower Digivolution card from its sources in order to activate certain combos that you can do when you're attacking as Metal Garurumon. Keep in mind the opponent can block this Digimon, and it isn't quite as strong as Mirage Galgamon is, but for the most part, having 11k power to work with is good enough most of the time for you to be attacking the opponent directly. Okay, so let's move on to the next set of cards. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about the level 5 cards in our deck, and we're going to be using 9 copies. Okay, so first we are going to be using 4 copies of Mach Galgamon, 3 copies of starter deck Were Garurumon, and just 1 copy of Monzaimon. Now let me just explain Monzaimon first. Monzaimon is a 2 cost to evolve level 5 and is a 5 cost to play directly from your hand and into the field. Now, the reason why I have at least one copy of this guy is because in a situation where we might get bricked, if we have this one copy of Monzaimon, we are allowing ourselves to more easily access our level 6 Digimon just by having this card on the field as soon as possible. Now, 5 cost is not at all very hard to play with. It's not that harsh on the memory exchange between you and your opponent, because if you have a memory fixer such as Yamato, which we're going to feature later, then you're only passing 2 memory to the opponent. But that's it for Monzaimon though. For the most part, you will want to digivolve into one of these cards. You're going to want to digivolve into Mach Galgamon or Wergarurumon. Now, luckily, if you have the blue starter deck, you are going to have the 4 copies of Wergarurumon right away. And this is really nice because you get to have a security attack +1 if your opponent has a Digimon that doesn't have any Digivolution sources, which, like I said before, is pretty easy to accomplish. It is a typical scenario to encounter in a regular match. And so this allows your level 6s to be a lot more aggressive. Now, Mach Galgamon, on the other hand, also offers quite a bit of aggression, but in a different way. Now, first of all, Mach Galgamon has this main ability of Digiburst 2, so you can trash 2 Digivolution sources underneath it so that you can return one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to the opponent's hand, and you get to trash the Digivolution sources in the process. Now, this is really cool because even without evolving into a level 6, you are able to just remove a level 4 Digimon from the opponent's field. Now, you will definitely want to try and use this Digiburst on Digimon that are considered blockers. You definitely don't want to deal with blockers, especially when you are attacking as Metal Garurumon, but also it weakens your opponent's board presence. Now, also, you can use this against, say, Devimon from purple decks because they have retaliation and you don't want to deal with that on the next turn. This Digiburst can help you remove such problems for you. Now, it also has a really neat inheritable skill. While you have a Tamer in play, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. This is kind of the only reliable way for our deck to have DP boosting. So this artificially makes your Metal Garurumon and your Mirage Galgamon just a little bit stronger. It doesn't have the +1 security attack like Wergarurumon does, but it does make it safer for you to attack into security because then you start beating over those 12k Digimon that might be hiding in the opponent's security. Of course, you can only activate this if you have a Tamer in the field, but not to worry, we are definitely playing Tamers and we're going to get into that a bit later. Okay, now let's move on to the next set of cards. Okay, next we have our champions. Okay, we are going to be using 12 champions for this deck, and we are going to be using 4 copies of Galgamon, I'm sorry. We're going to be using 4 copies of Galgamon, 4 copies of Garurumon, and 4 copies of Grizzlymon. Okay, so you're beginning to see why I chose the Digimon that we have for level 6s. We definitely want the Gaomon line and the Gabumon line because those two happen to be BasedDigimon's favorite Digimon. So Galgamon here also has a Digiburst ability. We want to use this ability sparingly. This is more so a situational type of ability. As you can notice, not a single one of the champions that we're using has an inheritable skill. And that's because we're going to be using a combination of forcing cards out of our Digivolution sources to use their effects, or using Digivolution sources as a way to activate Mach Galgamon's Digiburst. Now, Galgamon here also has Digiburst 2, and if you trash the bottom 2 Digivolution sources, you get to draw 1 card from your deck. This allows you to gain a little bit more hand advantage in your match, And we are also going to be using cards that are comfortable for us to use Digiburst with, which for the case of Galgamon, we only have the option of losing both our rookie and our Digi eggs. So here is kind of the main engine for our Metal Garurumon build. Okay, when you attack and you choose this evolution source to be played as a separate Digimon when you're attacking as Metal Garurumon, the on-play effect of Garurumon allows you to unsuspend one of your Digimon. So we're going to explain the possible combos that we can do with this deck in a bit, but keep in mind this play effect is going to be extremely important for the purposes of this deck. And then of course we have 4 Grizzlymon because we definitely need blockers. They're very important, and also we can actually use this in combination with Metal Garurumon as well, because we have at least 8 targets that we can use for Metal Garurumon to remove from the sources and play as a Digimon in the battlefield. So that's it for our champions. Let's move on to our rookies. Okay, so just like our champions, we are playing a total of 12 rookies.
Okay.
So we are going to start off with 4 copies of the BasedDigimon mascot himself, Gaomon, and then 4 copies of Gabumon, and 4 copies of starter deck Gomamon. Okay, so the reason why we're going to try and get away with just using 12 rookies is because we are using 4 copies here, 4 copies of Gaomon. Now Gaomon here allows you to return this card if this card here gets trashed as a result of using a Digiburst ability. Now, as you remember, we are going to be using Digiburst with Galgamon, but mostly we're going to be trying to use Digiburst with Mach Galgamon. And that way we can actually recycle these cards, and if we have at least 1 Gaomon in our hand, we can always bring it back. We are never going to run out of rookies in that regard. For Gabumon here, much like the Garurumon that came before it, this Gabumon also has an on-play effect, which in this case is trigger, draw 1, and draw 1 card from your deck. So we want to be using this as a Digivolution source for a Metal Garurumon build, but also you have the option of just directly playing it from your hand and into the battlefield, because that draw 1 is an extremely powerful ability. It's very versatile, very useful in literally every situation where it is still your turn. So that's why you're going to be having 4 copies of this. Now, 4 copies of Gomamon is pretty simple. It is a 2-cost rookie, so it's so easy to play it, and you can use this as more of a tempo card. The preferred thing for me to do is to have 1 Gomamon play directly into the battlefield and then Digivolve that into a Grizzlymon later. But sometimes we don't have that luxury. Now, we are once again not really concerned about inheritable skills, and we only have 1 rookie with an inheritable skill, and that is just to recycle this card over and over again for as long as we are able to use Digiburst. Typically speaking, most players like to comfortably have 14 to maybe even 16 rookies, but because of Gaomon's inheritable skill, we can get away with playing just 12 for the most part. So that's it for our rookies. Next, we're going to be talking about our Tamers. Now, for our Tamers, we are going to be using 2 copies of Thomas Norstein and 2 copies of Matt Ishida. These are the partners of both Gaomon and Gabumon. So of course we're going to be using these Tamers specifically for this deck profile. We're going to start off by talking about Thomas here. Now, just like the Gabumon rookie, this card has the ability to give you a draw 1 when you play it into the battlefield. Now, because this is a Tamer card, just like every other Tamer that came before it, you can play this card into the field without paying its memory cost if it is part of your security stack. So, trigger draw 1 just to give you a little bit more advantage with your hand. And also, the main effect of this card is if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you may suspend this tamer to unsuspend one of your Digimon with Gao in its name. Now, we know exactly what we're doing here. We are going to be forcing our opponent to deal with multiple attacks. If you have 2 Thomases in the battlefield, you can actually attack up to 3 times with your Mirage Galgamon, and it's actually pretty insane. Technically speaking, you don't even have to attack, you don't even have to wait until Mirage Galgamon. You can technically attack with Mach Galgamon, Galgamon, and Galmon. So you can be aggressive at any level of Digimon, but it is probably a lot safer for you to use Thomas's effect when you have Mirage Galgamon in the field. Now, for Matt Ishida here, what we want from him first and foremost is his ability to fix your memory. If you have 2 or less memory, set it to 3 at the beginning of your turn. But also, you get to suspend this tamer if you play a blue Digimon into the battlefield. Now, this works every time you play a Digimon directly from your hand, but also this works when you play a Digimon because of Metal Garurumon's effect. Now, every time we suspend Matt, it allows us to remove the bottommost evolution Digivolution source from one of your opponent's Digimon. So this just gives you a little bit more advantage when it comes to dealing with certain card combinations that your opponent might be relying on. So that's it for our Tamers, and let's move on to our option cards. Okay, so to round off this deck, we are actually going to be playing 6 option cards, which sounds like a lot, but trust me, this is going to be a very good time for you. Probably. Okay, so 2 copies of Full Moon Blaster, 2 copies of Kakaida's Breath, and 2 copies of Kaiser Nail. Okay, now, starting off with the Full Moon Blaster, just like what's going on with the Thomas and the Mirage Galgamon line, you're going to be wanting to ask your opponent how many cards they have in their hand. The main effect of this card is you get to return a level 5 or lower Digimon back to your opponent's hand. But if your opponent has 8 or more cards, then you actually can return that Digimon to the bottom of the opponent's deck. Now this is really useful, especially against say purple decks, which rely on putting cards into the trash or having a lot of cards in their hand. Instead, you're making those cards inaccessible by placing them at the bottom of a purple deck. So that's really, really powerful. And also, you get to activate this card's main effect if it's found in security. Now, Kakaida's Breath is going to be the most straightforward removal card of this deck. At 7 cost, you can force back one of your opponent's Digimon back to the owner's hand. At 7 cost, that is pretty expensive for just forcing back a Digimon to your opponent's hand, and they can use the 7 memory that you gave them just to bring the Digimon back. But it is really, really cool to find this in your security stack though. It's really trolly and also really powerful if you have a lot of memory to work with, if your opponent is the one who's forced to give you a lot of memory instead. Last but not least, we have Kaiser Nail. Now, Kaiser Nail allows us to choose a Digivolution source from any of our Digimon, and then you can play that Digivolution source separately without paying its cost. Now this, I prefer to use this on our level 5s, so that way we have another immediate way of digivolving into a level 6 if we want to play it a little faster. But another way of using this is to force out Garurumon from your evolution sources, so that way you can unsuspend your Digimon This one also activates its main effect when it is hit in your security. As a matter of fact, every single option card that we're using has the ability to activate their main effect when it is hit in security. So we have a few ways of removing your opponent's Digimon from the field, and also Kaiser Nail is just used as a utility to hopefully manage your momentum and keep it in your favor a little bit. And that's it for the deck profile. Okay, so let's talk about some of the combinations that you can do with this deck. Now this would be a pretty good looking ideal stack to begin with. Now you're gonna want to have Mach Galgamon in the battlefield so that you can actually use the Digiburst. Keep in mind you cannot use Digiburst if your Digimon is still in the raising area. So in the battlefield, if you activate the Digiburst, you should be trashing the Gaomon and the Galgamon. Gaomon is going to be useless, so you can just put that in your trash, and then Gaomon will actually go back to your hand, and that way you will always have another rookie. Now, when it comes time to digivolve into Mirage Galgamon, you still get to keep Mach Galgamon's inheritable skill and Upamon's inheritable skill. So these are the two inheritable skills that you're going to be wanting to keep with you at the very least. Now we're going to move on to another combination with Metal Garurumon. Okay, so here is another ideal looking stack that would hopefully happen for you in the middle of battle. When you have Metal Garurumon, you can declare an attack, and when attacking, you can play a level 4 or lower Digivolution source from this Digimon. So ideally, the first time you attack with this kind of stack, you should be removing Garurumon and then play that as a separate Digimon. Now Garurumon will allow you to unsuspend one of your Digimon as soon as it's on play, which means you can unsuspend your Metal Garurumon and declare another attack. Now with this second attack, you can play Gabumon, and Gabumon allows you to draw a card when it is played. So do you see where we're going with this? This allows you to attack at least twice with Metal Garurumon, and you can remove up to 4 security stacks if you have Were Garurumon as a Digivolution source. And if your opponent doesn't have an evolution source in one of their Digimon, you also get to activate Upamon's effect and draw a card in the process. Now this is an incredibly aggressive stack, arguably more aggressive than using the Digiburst with Mach Galgamon and the unblockable Mirage Galgamon. But with only 11k, there is a risk of running into something more powerful than you in the security stack. Going after 4 security cards immediately, your opponent is very likely to try and block you as well. So just keep that in mind. Your opponent will be forced to play defensively sometimes, and you won't be able to check security, but that also puts you at an advantage in your board presence anyway, so that just kind of works out. Okay, another way of looking at it is that even though it is tempting to think that you want to evolve your Mach Galgamon into a Mirage Galgamon and Were Garurumon into a Metal Garurumon, that doesn't always have to be the case. You can actually freely evolve Were Garurumon into Mirage Galgamon, and then you can do the exact same for Mach Galgamon and Metal Garurumon. It's just that how you're handling the other evolution sources will be a bit different on the way up. Now, this is nice because your security attack +1 for Mirage Galgamon, getting that effect from Were Garurumon, becomes unblockable. And if you declare an attack and your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you get to unsuspend this Digimon so that you can activate Thomas's effect and actually end up checking 4 security cards anyway. And this is a good way of checking up to 4 security cards with Mirage Galgamon because it is a little bit stronger than Metal Garurumon, so therefore it's a higher survival rate. Now for Metal Garurumon, every time you make an attack and you unsuspend yourself using Garurumon, suspend Matt Ishida, that way you can remove a Digivolution source. Always do that every time you play a Digimon from your hand as well. So if this Gabumon is just in my hand and I want to play it in the field, don't ever forget to activate Matt Ishida's effect, because you could be hampering your opponent's progress while it's still your turn. And we have made it to the end of this video. Now, like I said near the beginning of this video, this deck is definitely not meant to be taken seriously in a competitive sense, but like I said, it's really fun to do this. I had a lot of fun brainstorming and constructing this deck and making it as close as possible to BasedDigimon's aesthetic. It turned out to be a lot better than I thought, a lot more competent than I thought. There are definitely many ways to improve this deck. For example, you could replace the Grizzlymon blockers for a Sealamon blocker when BT5 comes out. You can also try and add more copies of Tobiomon, because that is a way cheaper Digivolution source than the Galgamon. But anyways, if you want to see more content, hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching today, but most importantly, take care.